When I began this program, as mentioned, I started anthropology. Then I added public health, and then I added gerontology, all of which came from as I learned things, understanding the interdisciplinary aspect and how things are so layered that being able to combine both my analytical skills, my research skills, my people skills, my communicating skills, and my lived experiences will enable me to be more holistic in my approach and how I deal with any programs, workshops, and things of that nature. So, things I learned while in the program. The three classes that were really helpful for me were social determinants of health, community health practices, and behavioral change. I wrote them down, sorry. The reason those were most helpful to me was I remember, again, being younger and having a lived experience. I didn't realize how different others were living. It wasn't until I joined the military at 19 and I'm getting all kinds of different people in and you're seeing how different they are. But then when I became a supervisor and you're seeing somebody struggling and you're like, you just don't get it, but then you understand they don't get it. And the reason they don't get it, and you having to fill in those gaps instead of holding them to a standard that's not fair for them. And so having to figure out where they are to get them where you want them to be. And I felt like being able to use those traits in healthcare, public health arena would be ideal for me. And so in doing social determinants of health, that was important because growing up, when you have certain advantages, you hear the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? But the reality is it's easy for you to say for certain people because your first house, your parents gave you a down payment. And or you grew up in a house where they could send you to college. So you're like, you grew up where you had a baby early, but your family was able to support you and help you out. And you had access to people who had the jobs you wanted, right? So I have somebody recently who's 18 and pregnant and about to be a single mother. I only knew the struggle because my parents were married until I was 14. So when my dad left, complete game changer. And all I saw was the struggle. And I was like, this cannot be life. And that was a big reason why I joined the military. But these other individuals, what you saw is I always got, you don't act like a single parent. So they get lived experience of, okay, there's other options. Okay, we don't have to fight. You can have healthy co-parenting. And okay, you don't have to live in the crazy areas. You can tighten your belt for a little while and do what you need to and focus on needs, not just wants, and move into a better area because you realize the access to healthcare. You realize the access to healthier food options. And yes, it's cool just because you can eat out every day, the negative benefits, the negative effects of doing so. So social determinants of health help me realize the structural violence that's in the system. Also, the mindset of people where they say poverty isn't a character, but it's a mindset. And if all you're surrounded by is that stuff, then you don't know. But if you've always seen the other side, even if you didn't have it, you still saw it and it was attainable. That changes the game. So I just want people to see the other side. And so that was really helpful for me. And then community health methods was very helpful, and I actually used it. Like things I was learning weekly, I was implementing in some of the community relationships I had and implementing it in things. For example, during my listening session, we interviewed a community of older women in a specific area, and when we did it, they identified certain issues they were having, right? They were saying they were struggling to get access to good food because where they live, the buses have a lot of people who are either drug addicts or unhoused, and they felt unsafe. And not because they were labeling them, there's a high rate of crime going on. And since they were older, might have disabilities, can't move as fast, they were an easy target. So they struggled. They also talked about they needed to move their bodies, right? I'm studying menopause, and the important thing is the walkability of a neighborhood. They didn't have access to that. and they were growing mold in their apartments and things of that nature. And so, sitting in class one day, we were talking about different things, and myself and a fellow researcher, Sharon Gilliard, went in and did a workshop for them to help them understand how to navigate social determinants of health and help them understand it, as well as creating ways that while we can't fix everything, here's how you can improve your life. So we talked about Ubers and maybe going together, or getting access to different resources, or Instacart and getting food delivered. And while you might pay a little more for delivery, you're not struggling for food, and you just have to budget that in, because not everybody drove. A lot of them from New York, and when you're from New York, you had the bus system, and when you're 60, 70 years old, you're not running out to go get a license. So that was something that they had an issue with. Or working out. I used to work for the YMCA as a fun thing to do for Livestrong. I got certified as a trainer to help individuals who either beat cancer or were diagnosed with cancer. And so I used those skills, and I showed them things they could do at home or their community area. You know, everybody thinks you need a gym, but you don't. And so I showed them simple ways to improve their movement. You can't control the walkability, but you can control your own environment. And so being able to do those, and then the behavior change class was great, because many times individuals want to change, but they don't understand why they can't change. And if you don't understand it, you keep making the same failures, and after a while you just give up. So getting a better understanding. And I wish I would have learned it sooner, because my mom, who died at 66, which is a reason why I switched from maternal mortality to menopause and aging and improving quality of life for women in the lifespan, was I was trying to save my mom. She was a caregiver, and I had learned in earlier classes in public health, like the average age for a caregiver, a single parent, a Black woman, was about 65. She died at 66. So in doing that, it was easy to fuss at her, stop smoking. It was easy to say, stop going so hard. It was easy to tell her all the things she needed to do. But it wasn't until that behavior health change class where you understand the mental aspect of, she might have wanted to stop smoking. She might have wanted to move her body more. She might have wanted to do all these different things, but there were barriers. And if I could have had that knowledge sooner, not to say I could have saved her, but I could have been a little more wise in the way I did things, and been able to help her find, again, right? Life is like a layer. Like, you peel this off, it's like, okay, I smoke, but why? Because but why? But why? And if we could have done the work versus the condemnation, you might have found, like, oh, I can do this. And instead of feeling like you have to hide it, or you have to be ashamed of it, you could have realized this is normal and there's a way out, and you're not the only one. And so having those classes were really helpful for me, because I'm a type A personality, and I deal with mental illness. I deal with a lot of chronic illness, things that like had me bedridden for days, but yet I still did boom, boom, boom. And it's easy to be like, if I could do it, why can't you? But it's not always that simple, right? Sometimes it's how we're created. Sometimes it's the access to resources. Like going in the military, I'm covered medically for the rest of my life. Everything. I always have a paycheck as long as I'm breathing. I have access to VA loans. Like, there's certain benefits that I have that I can't judge others because they don't, and their life is different. And because I didn't live as a civilian, there's so many barriers they have that I never had. So being in this program helped me to understand it. Another one that was good was the health systems one, where we talked about healthcare and how it's delivered, and it's different for each country and what we can learn from them. Because I grew up at 19, went in the military, signed a paper, and my medical was covered. It wasn't until I was 39, 40 years old where I had to figure out how to apply. And then didn't even realize how truly expensive it was, because it was part of my pension package. So while I might pay $180 something for full premium coverage for myself and my son, his dad, who got out the military, didn't get the benefit, is paying hundreds of dollars. And that's just for him alone. That's not even including his son or his daughter. And so being able to gain knowledge allows for empathy, better program implementation, hiring, like understanding what I need on my team, and being able to understand that it's not always about who the person is. Sometimes it's their access to resources, opportunities, and mentorship. And that's where being able to be in this program helped me understand structural violence, helped me understand the effects that civilians have to navigate, that structural processes in the military protected me or prevented. So if something did happen because of my gender, I had chains of command I can go up. Like I had that situation once, and I just went to the guy's commander and I explained everything, and he held that man accountable. You guys don't have that. And so being able to better understand before getting into the system was very important for me.